Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride. And today we are talking about a neutral attachment from the Treason of Saruman, which is Shadowfax. That costs 3. It has the trains Mountain Miras. It states attached to Gandalf. Gandalf gains ranged and sentinel, and you exhaust Shadowfax to ready Gandalf. And it has probably the second best flavor text that I've read on a card. He is the chief of the Mieras, lord of forces, and not even the Theoden, king of Rohan, has ever looked on better. Gandalf, the Two Towers.
So what do you think of this guy?
In all honesty, brilliant. He gives probably the action advantage is brilliant. The range and sentinel, if you're playing in multiplayer, is without a doubt a great thing.
And then it's one card that gives him ranged and sentinel. That's great.
Exactly.
And it's so thematic.
And there's no real drawback to it. People say, well, it can only be attached to Gandalf. Yes, but you've got 2 versions of Gandalf that could be out long term. You've got hero version Gandalf and Gandalf from Overhill and Underhill that it could attach to without worry, really.
Right. I like this. I think that the thematics that you have a horse that can give, that gives Gandalf ranged and sentinel. It's like that thematically is awesome. And, the attached to Gandalf is also thematic because the Lord of the Miras wouldn't let anybody else ride him.
Well,
I mean, well,
in the book, it was nobody had tamed the Lord of the Miras.
Right.
And then Gandalf, the king, gave him permission to take any horse. And he took Shadowfax, which angered Theoden.
Right. And it's just, this card is a thematic home run.
Definitely.
The one thing that drives me nuts about this card when I play it, and we recently recorded a show with Ted Bannock about Hero Gandalf and about how Shadowfax is a great card. The one thing that drives me nuts is that its cost is 3. I'm not saying it's overcosted. I'm not saying that it's costed wrong. I just to pay 3 for a mount, to me, just in my own head, just drives me nuts a little. It's fine. It's perfectly costed. I'm not saying that it's a bad cost per card. I just, for 3, and I am primarily playing solo, and so that's one of the things that I have a problem to gain. It gains ranged and sentinel, which are abilities that I very rarely use solo, unless it's the Moria bats that can only be killed by ranged things, or whatever. That 3 just breaks my heart as a solo player.
Well, if you're running it in your dwarf mining deck, have you thought about putting in Thrall's Ring?
Well, right, and so it's right. Yeah, no, it's definitely in my dwarf mining deck, and I do use it. I find that action advantage is amazing because you can only have 3 copies of Unexpected Courage. So this allows Gandalf to do a lot of heavy lifting, and it may be the card that you want to see early on in that deck. Because if you don't get an Unexpected Courage, to be able to pay 3 and put this on Gandalf, because Gandalf's abilities, regardless of which version you're using, to be able to ready him and use him twice in a round to do something, is great.
Definitely.
So I don't know. It's just that this card just screams theme to me.
I think it's costed right because
Right, I totally agree.
Because if you look at the Dunedain Cache and the other Dunedain
Right, the
cards,
Dunedain Ranged and the Dunedain Sentinel, right?
they costed it 2, I believe. Or at least
Well, the ranged one is, and I think the Sentinel is costed at 1.
Yeah, so you're paying 2 for the Dunedain ones. 3 for the Dunedain ones, but this also gives action advantage.
Right, it's the unexpected courage. So you're spending 3. Yeah. You're spending 3 where you normally would spend 5 on separate cards.
Exactly, and I think it's neutral, so you can pay from it from any sphere, and you get like the bonuses on top of that. It's an auto include for anybody running Gandalf.
Yeah, I think that you have to put at least 2 copies of this in a deck that runs Gandalf. Like you can muddle through without that action advantage solo, but to get Shadowfax, like you just feel very, very at ease when all of a sudden when Shadowfax comes out and it's on Gandalf. I think that this card is a great card for the Gandalf includes, of all the Gandalf, there's Gandalf's staff, and then there's the wizard pipe, and then the ring. I always forget Narya, right? So there's a lot. This has to be part of that crew of cards that get put into the Gandalf deck, but because it's just so good. It may be I don't know. Narya's, they're all really good. I was going to say this may be the second best one next to his staff, but I don't know. I can't say that. They're all just really good. But again, this card is in one deck, and that's the deck that runs Gandalf. And as Ted said when we talked to him in our episode with him, is that's Gandalf can fit into a lot of different decks, but this card only goes into a deck where Gandalf is your hero. You can't turn a card into Gandalf. You can't, change the text where it says attached to a leadership hero or Gandalf. You're stuck with this only in one.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a card that can only work with Gandalf.
Right. Breaking news. This card only goes in a deck where you're using one of the 2 stick around Gandalf. I guess you could put this on a Gandalf onto core Gandalf. I mean, there's nothing preventing you from doing it. It just seems you spend 8 for
Yeah, but 2 actions with Gandalf. I think I'd stick to either hero or overhill and underhill with Shadowfax.
Well, I mean, okay, so if we're getting into some janky combos, you can sneak attack and then sword thane Gandalf. Oh, actually, you can't sword thane Gandalf because it has to be I think it has to. Sword thane says you have to use a hero from any sphere, or a unique ally from any sphere. Let me just double check that. But I think yes, it has to belong. So it can't be Gandalf because Gandalf doesn't belong to any sphere. He belongs to no sphere. So you actually can't sword thing Gandalf, right? So there's no janky combo that you can run with this. If you want to sword thing core Gandalf tough, you just have to run regular Gandalf. I mean, there's not a lot to say about this other than it's a great card for that deck.
Definitely.
So what are you going to? So do we ring this guy now or what?
Yeah, let's ring it.
I mean, I guess the one thing to talk about before we ring it is because it gives Gandalf ranged and Sentinel, it can trigger some of those other attachments that you need in order to have. That you need ranged or Sentinel from, right? Like,
Desperate Defense, I think, is one that triggers off the Sentinel keyword.
Okay.
The Spirit event. When you successfully defend an attack, you can then ready the defender and give a +2 defense or something.
Let's see. Desperate Defense. Desperate Defense. After a Sentinel character is declared as defender, it gets +2 defense for this attack. If this attack deals no damage, ready the defending character. It's a 1-cost spirit attachment. So that's always good.
Yeah, so basically Gandalf with Shadowfax would be defending for 5.
Right. Not counting anything else that he would happen to be.
That you might have on him, yeah.
Right. And so that would also give him a ready outside of the combat phase, and you wouldn't have to use Shadowfax's readying. I don't know.
But, it's janky combos.
Yeah, I mean, these aren't necessarily the best combos in the world to run, but it definitely opens doors. And I think the best thing is that, if you're running Gandalf solo, you may not want to include it. Shadowfax, there may be a reason for you not to include it, but I think
There's
if you're
always
running,
a reason to include Shadowfax. Readying.
But I think that if you're running multiplayer, you almost have to run Shadowfax. Is what I was getting at. It would almost be grief mode to run Gandalf and not include Shadowfax. Just sit there and hold Shadowfax. Use the Flame of Honor and use Shadowfax, and you can't do that because Flame of Honor is for allies. But nonetheless, it would still be kind of funny.
Rating Shadowfax.
Oh, are we going to ring him?
Yeah, I think we need to ring this horse.
Okay, so for anybody who is new to the podcast, we have a highly scientific yet arbitrary system where we ring our cards from 1 to 10, where 1 ring is the one card to rule them all, and 10 rings is the worst card in the game. And so, Grant, how would you rate Shadowfax?
Because it's a card that can only go on Gandalf, I'm not rating it in terms of the entire card pool. I'm rating it just solely on what it does. So I'm rating it a 2. The action advantage is brilliant, and the ranged in Sentinel keywords come in handy.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to do the same thing. There are certain cards that kind of work really well in a theme deck, and then work okay outside of it. The Nath Guide is kind of one of those things where it works really awesome inside a Sylvan deck, but even outside a Sylvan deck, you can use it. This card, I mean, if you were to rate it in any other deck that doesn't use Gandalf, it has to be a 10 because you can't use it. So it only makes sense to rate this card in a deck that Gandalf is a hero. So with that in mind, that ruins a lot of my own criteria. Is it is this card itself a versatile? Can it fit into a lot of decks? Well, that's out the window because it doesn't even qualify for any of that. There's no versatility to this card at all. You have to run Gandalf hero. So that's out the window. So I think that within that Gandalf deck, I think all his toys really get a high rating from me, and I think that I have to agree with you. I would say he's not necessary, but he's just about as necessary as all his other toys. I think you can run a Gandalf deck without Shadowfax, but I think you're short-suiting yourself if you decide not to run Shadowfax, if you know what I mean. He's not a must have on the board first round, but he definitely smooths over action advantage for Gandalf right away if you get him.
Oh, definitely.
So I think that I have to give him a 2 within just the Gandalf deck. So join us next time as we talk about more cards from the game. Have a great day. And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, feel free to search YouTube, where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username Card Talk 2018. Or you can search the RSS feed, cardtalk2018.libsyn.org, for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at Card Talk 2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself, or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.